The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2020 Houston Open DraftKings picks and preview bets one and done towards the end of the show. You want that? You hit the description. If you missed the Masters initial pricing show, fuck's wrong with you? Give your head a shake, pals. You can either go download that podcast or go check it out on YouTube on the Mayo Media Network. Remember to subscribe to Mayo Media Network because there's a ton of Masters content coming down. Now, before you go do that, smash the like button to this episode, and in the comment section, you tell me who's going to win the Houston Open. All right? New course this year, by the way. But for the Masters, the Listeners League link is in the description of this video and podcast. It's also in the Masters preview show as well. It just opened 5,000 spots. Let's fill this quickly. So they know at DraftKings be like, hey, every week we should be handing out, like, I think the max that I can do for the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League is 6,667 spots. I think that maxes out at $100,000 guaranteed, but it's the best tournament on DraftKings. $15 to play, 3 max entry, no rake. Reserve your spot now because these 5,000 spots are going to go very quickly. If you're just jumping in right now on the audio podcast, please rate and review 5 stars. If you just leave the rating, scroll to the bottom of your iPhone, click 5, and then just be on your way. That helps out a lot and takes literally less than 5 seconds to do. So if you enjoyed the show, please go do that. I think that's going to be it. Oh, no, it's not. If you're watching this on a Wednesday, good news for you, fellow loyal viewers. We have well, it's not really a promotion at fantasynational.com, but if you get the weekly membership at fantasynational.com today, you get Houston to build your lineups with and use the lineup generator and get all the stats. But you get Wednesday to Wednesday, meaning you get all the live stats from Houston over the weekend, and all of the Masters content and stats are built into it right now as well. So you want to start going to fuck around with the model because you're fired up for the Masters. Highly suggest fantasynational.com/Mayo. You use that /Mayo, it gets you 20% off. Okay, cheat sheet will be up on dkplaybook.com a little bit later Wednesday afternoon. My betting cheat sheet as well up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme, same as Twitter, and my pivot plays will be up at ftndaily.com if you're looking for an ownership break on anyone. Joining me from ftndaily.com on the line, as he has been for many a week now, Skylar Hoke. What's going on, my man?
Hey, Pat. Yeah, exciting times ahead. You know, another new course for the Houston Open, but we're just right on the cusp of the Masters. So I'm intrigued at so much of this field showing up here. I know we talked a little bit last week if we thought we'd see a decent bit of players taking the risk with fans in attendance for the first time. But I'm excited to see, especially the headliners, getting DJ and Brooks, Hatton here. There's some studs here that we haven't seen in a little bit since the West Coast swing. So excited to see the tune-ups and ready to get to Augusta pretty soon here.
Yeah, somehow the Houston Open really benefited from a bunch of like top-end players contracting COVID-19, then recovering, and now they're all here because they want to get some warm-up rounds in before the Masters.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, DJ needed this. I mean, after missing out there, Finau, of course, missed a couple weeks. I mean, even Brooksy, if you think back to things, he really hasn't got a great tune-up after he missed COVID, 2 got hurt again. So, yeah, I'm excited to see this. And then, again, an unknown with another new course. I feel like every week we've spoke, it's either a course with no shot link or something we don't have historical data on. So we're taking, educated guesses. Shout out, I think it was Cody or Kobe who gave you that long preview of the course that he plays all the time. I was really appreciative of that.
Yeah, you can check that out in the first look video and podcast I released on Monday. Yeah, shout out Kobe. Someone who lives near the course, gave us kind of a breakdown of what's going on. But a lot has changed in the intervening time between Monday and now because they changed the scorecard. Well, I guess they didn't change it. They just released the wrong scorecard. We did all of our research. They're like, oh, no. It's not a par 72 at all. It's a par 70. So we'll jump into that in a second. I did want to inform everyone, though, about the Masters schedule. So the first initial pricing look at the DraftKings pricing, that's already out. Saturday, me, Raza, and Rick will be breaking down the entire field DraftKings-wise. Monday afternoon, me and Feinberg in studio betting preview. Then, noon Eastern time next Wednesday, live chat, taking your Masters questions, releasing my final card, looking at the weather, but I wouldn't look at the weather just as of yet, because as David Barnett of the Tour Junkies pointed out, it can kind of change in Augusta all the time, especially around this time of year. So let's wait before we start having freakouts about the weather when it pertains to the Masters. We got to talk about the Houston Open. Let's talk about this course, because there was the big thing going on that when you loaded up the app, it said it was a par 72 with 5 par 5s, and like, okay. And it was 7,432 yards, which it still is, but now it's a par 70. And the big one is going to be that hole 1, which went from a super easy par 5 where eagles could be made to a really daunting par 4. And showdown wise, I guess you would want your players starting on hole number 1, because 18 and 1 appear to be like the 2 toughest holes on the course now.
Yeah, I always like that edge you talk about each week to see, if you can run a streak together. I mean, with showdown scoring, that bonus always plays a factor. So I always like kind of looking into that. I love that they made the change. Not that relative, you would think if hole 1 would have played as a par 5, almost everybody would have been able to get there in 2. Now it's mandatory pretty much, or you're getting up and down green side as a par 4. So I guess mentally, I still love to see guys not like shooting 25 under and plus, but it's probably the still same shots. I know you hit on your early look of proximity greater than 200 yards, whether it's playing a par 4 or par 5, that shot range is still going to be required at some of these lengthy par 4s and those second shots on the 3 remaining par 5s. So I think that statistically still we're going to approach it the same way. We're just going to see, a little bit difference from that standpoint.
So when we look at the very top of the pricing board, there's 132 players in this field. Top 65 and ties will end up making the cut. We do have ShotLink this week. So if you want to play in Tournament Showdown or you want to make some live bets, fantasynational.com can guide you in that direction with all of the real-time updated strokes gained data from on the course. But if we just look at the pricing, we go to the very top. You got Dustin Johnson at 11.5, $600 cheaper. Tony Finau at 10.9, then Brooks, then Hatton, then Hideki. Call me a sucker. A lot of people do. But I like Brooks this week.
Pat, you brought on the right person this week when we talk about Brooks. I mean, I'm a homer. He's the guy I root for the most and enjoy, especially because in these situations, he continues to be low owned. And is there a reason why? Of course, he hasn't played that great as of recently on an overall standpoint, but we've hit on it. That approach game has looked very strong recently, even with the injury. So that's something that's going to continue to be, a huge benefit to this course, at Augusta next week. So I love Brooks. And then it doesn't hurt, of course, that he played a part in the Tom Dokes redesign, of this course. So does he have more of a familiarity than others? You would imagine so, since his opinion weighed heavily, on how this course is going to play out, especially around the greens. So sucker or not, I am definitely in on Brooks, and it doesn't seem like the field is all that there with him.
So in terms of ownership, and obviously this can change as the day progresses on, once guys are identified as quote unquote low owned, then people end up moving on to them and off of the popular plays, then it all just kind of evens itself out. But of the top guys above $10,000, Finau and Hatton are coming in with the most ownership, pushing around 20%. Then it's Dustin, then Brooks, then Hideki. I think a lot of people will say they want to play Brooks, then be terrified to play Brooks. I think if you look at like the giant $10 or the giant $5, he's going to carry a lot of ownership, but in single entry, I doubt he will.
So my thing is there's 2 ways I always look at Brooks each week. Is he low priced, which next week at the Masters, he's pretty cheap? Is he low owned? And if he's one of those 2, I find myself getting in on that. If he's the combination of both, like we saw last year at the Masters, then it's a spot I really shove the chips in. So that, to me, he's falling in the category of low owned. I'm good with that. Now, if we talk about the Bass Pros, I'm surprised more people aren't getting this DJ because, these are the type of fields, and obviously the odds correlate, where he is far and above, the best player in the field. Do you worry about the layoff with COVID at all? Do you think it affected him? I don't know.
I have no idea what affects that guy and what doesn't affect that guy, to be perfectly honest with you. And maybe I think Dustin's ownership is going to depend on how comfortable people feel at the very bottom. If they feel comfortable in the $6,000 range or the low 7s, then people will jam in Dustin. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal to people when they're constructing their lineups that Dustin has had the week off. But do you worry that whether it is, any of these guys that have a chance at winning at Augusta next week, I never think about it as, oh, you know what, they're really going to try next week. They're just showing up here for what reason? And people do kind of play on that line. It's like Brooks currently is 22-1 to win the Houston Open. I believe he's 18-1 to win the Masters in a field that's, what, 5 times as strong? That I just don't get why. Like, is the narrative that Brooks isn't going to try this week and Dustin's not going to try this week, but Finau is going to try this week? I don't understand how people use that logic.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. If you're teeing it up for me, even when it comes to injury concerns in a sense as well, but especially when it's motivation tactics, if you're playing to win. There's a reason you're there. Of course, you want to get your game in shape before the biggest test of golf next week. But that doesn't come with, okay, I'm happy with finishing T25 and I'm not going to push it to try to win, especially if you're in the mix on the weekend. So I don't see any reason to think, one, those odds aren't crazy, to think about either one week is wrong. Is it next week or is it this week? But, I bet Brooks as well. And I just think, especially, Finau too. If you think Finau can compete and win here, it should be reflective the same there. I'm not buying into that. If you're teeing up for me, I believe you want to win and you're not there just settling.
So when we dropped, actually, let's not drop down yet. Let's talk about these top 5 guys. You had to power rank the top 3 for you. For me, it would be Brooks, then Dustin, then I think Hatton, actually.
Yeah, I sadly think we are just straight aligned on that. I think the benefit of Brooks's, price, $900, will be a little bit of an upgrade down low. So Brooks would be one. I probably 1A, 1B with DJ. Like, I don't understand people. I mean, if you run stat models, if you look at it, he's clear 1 in every single category. This could be, and I think people will play that factor of worried of his recent layoff due to everything. So I think definitely 1A, 1B DJ. And Hatton's just been so strong. Hatton has just been somebody that we can rely on continually. I mean, he came out of the Zozo. Our CJ Cup did so well after winning the BMW PGA Championship, still was solid, at the Zozo. So I think Hatton is a deserved third. But then you get the 2 guys that don't come across the finish line in Finau and Hideki, and you're paying a premium for that when I trust the other 3 much more. So especially if the ownership's getting to Finau, I am more than happy going with the other 3 that we pointed out.
It's so tough for me to pay 10-9 for Finau. And when he comes like 4th, then it's probably going to be worth it because he's going to do a bunch of scoring. And then it really depends on the relative finish of everyone else in the 10K range and what the opportunity cost of using him over someone like Hideki or Brooks was when it comes down to it. He's probably like the best floor of all of these guys, like historically speaking. I'm kind of counting in that Dustin could be dealing with a few ramifications of COVID and the injury as it pertains to Brooks Koepka. Are you worried about Brooks's driving? Because that was really what kind of popped up in the stats, that's where he is going wrong right now. I mean, the putting comes and goes. That happens throughout the course of his career. The irons, like we mentioned, have been really good, but the driving has been bad, which is not normal for him. Yeah,
no. Is it a concern in a sense? Yeah, of course. I mean, that off the tee, especially the CJ Cup, I mean, when he got 4 rounds out of it, was a struggle. So I don't love to see it. For those that follow his girlfriend, Jenna Sims, on Instagram, I did note that Brooksy was out there when they were doing a Q&A, and he just said he was casually -7 through 8 holes last week before darkness had to conclude that. So here we are just finding more narratives to find around. But again, I like taking a shot. I even went with the complete degen move of parlaying him winning this week with next week because, I can't live with myself if he goes back to back and I don't have that 350-1 out there.
Oh, that's interesting. I might actually have to do that too. If I bet him 22-1 this week, you say it's 350-1?
That was 18-18. I think it was right around like 350-1. So I think those odds have moved a little bit. There's only certain books that let you parlay both. But this is my thing. If he is coming out and winning this week, his odds are going to plummet next week. He's going to probably be side by side, with Rory and maybe even Bryson if he gets that low, because people love to bet him at majors and they know he comes in good form. So I'd rather get ahead of it and take that chance.
Per the stat modeling that I've done on fantasynational.com over the past 3 months is the limit that I've set. I went through how I built everything. I just mixed it up a little bit once this got changed from a par 72 to a par 70. I mean, again, it wasn't changed. It was just wrong when it was first reported and then got rectified in the reporting on Tuesday evening. Although that's a news dump. Tuesday evening during an election when you change the scorecard on the PGA Tour, maybe some people don't see it, but that's why we're telling you right now on a Wednesday morning what's going on. It's Dustin by far number one above everyone else, then Hatton, then Hideki, then Finau, then Brooks. Hideki is shaping up to be basically the pivot play from the top end out of all of the 10K and 9K guys for that matter.
Yeah, I think the 9Ks get intriguing in the sense that, it's guys that have been in a Scheffler range, in the Henley range that you even talk about, that have just played quite well since the restart. I mean, Russell Henley, like we spoke about, I think it was last week. I mean, the approach game that he has blitzed with, if this was at the other course, I mean, he might be 10K plus with that course history. Are you willing to eat Henley chalk when you could get somebody like Hideki for $600 more? I mean, that becomes a question, but his ball striking is just out of this world. I'm so bummed he's not in the Masters field next week.
Well, looking at Hideki right now, he's 28th at Zozo, gained in all three tee to green categories, same as the CJ Cup when he came 21st. And of course, it's Hideki, so he lost 2 strokes putting, lost 2.1 strokes putting, bad at the Shriners, good at the U.S. Open, just a bunch of basically top 30 finishes. Although this field is significantly weaker, you don't usually love him on Bermuda. That's always been kind of his Achilles heel. But at the same time, he's someone who generally plays well at the Masters. And if he's getting into this form, he's just been kind of lingering. If I told you I have him projected at like 8% ownership and no one else in this range is going to be below 10, would that make him intriguing to you?
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And it's like I think we've talked before, it's splitting hairs with guys up top that you aren't surprised when an elite golfer who might be a little bit out of form, like if you run a progressional stat model with Hideki, long term, he's a top 3 player in this field. But as you get shorter and shorter time ranges, he continues to get lower down those ranks. But even so, yeah, single digit ownership, I don't mind that move, especially if someone's getting on to Tony, at a higher ownership. He could be even 20%, it looks like, for Tony. So if you can get that difference and save $900, is there all that much difference between those two? Probably not. So I think single digits, you could find me there, yes.
In the 9K range, we're going to go with Victor Hovland at $9,800. Below that, you got Scotty Scheffler at 96, Henley at 94, Sung Jae 93, Adam Scott 92, also returning from a COVID-19 positive test. He's cleared now. Sergio and Jason Day. I like Scheffler a lot. I feel like 2 months ago, he would have been the same price as Finau in this field.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that would have been, I mean, that elite, I mean, really his momentum stopped when he had to pull out of the U.S. Open because of COVID. I mean, he would have been 33-1 in there, probably played well at the U.S. Open, and easily could have been 10K plus.
I'm just looking at some of the ownerships right now. Scheffler's going to be very highly owned, but not as highly owned as Russell Henley. And if you just have to give, it's not to say that Russell Henley can't outperform Scotty Scheffler. He definitely can. He's done it a bunch of times in the past 2 months. But just putting them side by side, I would much rather have Scotty Scheffler.
At the lower ownership, yeah. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Henley's ball striking continues to be out of this world. I mean, he finished 4th at the Zozo and he lost over 5 strokes putting. Like, it's a good thing we're not at the same course that we've seen for the Houston Open, or Henley would have been like 15-1 with, that price tag. So I think anytime you get elevated ownership and an elevated price, that is tough to swallow with that. So I think there's definite pivots of Scheffler. I kind of like Sung Jae. You get Sung Jae onto Bermuda at 9,300. I think Sung Jae is a great play there too.
I don't like Sung Jae here. I think I would almost rather go in that Scott Sergio Day range, spin the roulette wheel and see which is just, I'll pick one to fall on and go with them.
I think Scott's intriguing too, the more I've looked at him, just because, I mean, he has that ability to, just show up and contend like he has at majors in past. Do I worry about, do you worry about what the effects of COVID-19 were on some of these golfers? Some say they didn't feel a thing. Finau said it knocked him out. It was a tough recovery, took an extra week from it, but he also played better than anybody did in their first week back. So it's tough to not think about it, but you plug your nose and you play Scott at a lower ownership at 9,200. I mean, he's a better player than a lot of these guys in the 9. So I definitely think Scott is the one that I would go to, probably over Sergio and definitely over Day. But Yeah, I don't think you can, you can get yourself unique mixing in two of those guys for sure.
And it does look like Sergio and Day are going to come in at significantly lower ownership than even Adam Scott, who's trailing everyone else in the 9K range at just around like 12% ownership, where Day's going to be at like 5. You can make this mistake all the time. Just because someone is low owned doesn't make them a good play, especially if they suck at a very high price. But someone like Sergio, I mean, he did win like 4 weeks ago, and his off the tee numbers are second in this field to Dustin over the past 3 months. That if he can really get the driver working, and that seems to be consistent with him, that not only watch out for him this week, watch out for him next week too.
Yeah. Have you looked at his odds at all? What next week was? I know they probably plummeted since he got that win, but yeah, the consistent off the tee. I mean, he hasn't lost strokes off the tee in over a year. I mean, that game, I agree. I like taking the shot there. If him and Day are going to be similar low ownership, I would rather, because the form that Sergio is showing is strong. So I would much rather do it on Sergio. And I'm far off of Jason Day, even if I think the around the green game might be a little bit trickier this week based off the way Brooks recommended Dokes to eliminate bunkers and make, tight lies around the green. I think that plays into Day's favor, but he has just been brutal recently. So I think Sergio does make sense in that, and does make a lot of sense next week too.
Sergio is 50-1 to win the Masters right now at where I'm looking. I believe he's 55-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook, where everyone should bet if they have the opportunity in their state to bet at DraftKingsSportsbook.com. The one thing about Day, the hidden part of him, is his CJ Cup was awesome before he withdrew in round 4. I believe he was leading the field tee to green, but his stats don't count from that because he ended up withdrawing. So that's not popping up in anyone's modeling.
And it's just so wild to me that, he was 6th. I think he was 6th going into the last round. And then this is my wedding weekend. So all I got to do was look at the stats afterwards. And I was like, what in the world? Why isn't everybody on Jason Day for this coming week? Led tee to green, was great in approach, top 6. And then I realized it's only 54 holes worth of data. And he, withdrew after tripling at like his opening hole on Sunday. But I went right back to him the following week, and it wasn't as pretty. But you're right. I mean, it comes in spurts. I mean, that long stretch he had leading into the PGA Championship was so good, and we haven't seen that same return. I'm just not willing to pay that price there for me yet. I think I want to see some underlying numbers again before I get back, when I think there's definitely some strong plays in the 8,000s.
So how about Vic with the big dick?
Yeah, I mean, we go all this way and you don't even talk about him at 9,800 on what should be a ball striking type course. I guess I don't love it. It's kind of meh to me. He continues to be great tee to green. Didn't putt really well at the Zozo, but I mean, he probably could have ripped off top 15s in a row if he would have just putt field average there. So I wouldn't fault anybody going back to Vic. It just seems I prefer the guys below him personally.
The one positive with Vic right now is he had that 3-event stretch when he led the field tee to green in each of those 3 events and couldn't get his win. He ended up coming, 11th, 12th, and 3rd those weeks because he could not sink a putt to save his fucking life. But then he just went on this streak. He lost off the tee in 3 consecutive events. Then he gained less than 1 stroke off the tee in the next 3 events. But in the past 3, starting at the U.S. Open, CJ Cup, and Zozo, against really strong fields, +2, +2, +4 off the tee. He's back to basically being Rory off the tee again, which is what you want to see here. If his irons can show up with him, I think that it's just really difficult for me to parse because I want to play Scheffler over him, and I am going to play Scheffler over him, but I'm wondering, should I break off, like a Kit Kat almost? If I have a full Kit Kat of Scheffler, do I just break off one finger for Vic?
Yeah, I guess when you do break down, and especially, I mean, that U.S. Open tee to green was excellent. Those approach numbers were awesome, and he kept those same, ball striking sense at the Zozo. It just was a putter. So, no, I wouldn't mind you. I mean, 9,800, I mean, it's hand in hand with Scheffler. What are they probably Scheffler catches a little bit more ownership, but I think they are very similar players. So if you are playing a few more lineups, I definitely think you can break off a little bit of that.
So in overall lineup construction, do you see yourself using a 10K guy, a 9K guy, and going down, or do you think you'll try to jam two 10K guys in it? Because the winners that we've seen over the past, since the swing season started, have basically all come from the $6,000 level.
Yeah, that's the thing. Should we just be prioritizing the sixes and then we figure out where it lands us at the top, based off of what it has been? I would like to think that I could maybe even make interesting Brooks DJ lineups, that really get low with it. So I think I will definitely have at least one 10K guy in a majority of my lineups. And the ones that I don't start with the 10Ks, I will probably play 3 of them in the 9. So it's a similar type of build, because I think the sixes, the higher sixes, the lower sevens definitely have some intrigue for me. So I'm probably playing more there, but it's not to say I hate the 8s, because I definitely think there's some good darts in the 8s.
So let's talk about this $8,000 range. I got 3 guys that I like. So if we go, Lonto kicks it off at 89, which is a lot of money for Lonto Griffiths. Give me a pass on that one. And it goes all the way through Stuart Sink, who's $8,000. But I like the guys that I have stars next to right now. I really like Corey Connors a lot. I think that he is an excellent pivot off of Doc Redman, who I have projected to be twice the amount. They're basically the same guy. So just give me Corey Connors, who's won in Texas before, by the way. I love Cam Davis, but he's going to be super chalky. Still going to use him. And then for my pivot play in this range, coming off 2 pretty decent starts in his last 2. He was T13 at the BMW PGA Championship, a nice tight course. And then at the CJ Cup, he was T28. Tends to putt better on Bermuda. Shane Lowry.
I'm glad you brought up Lowry. Yeah, I think he's pretty intriguing too this week. He played well at the BMW PGA Championship too in Europe, and he always plays well at that course. But I think there are some nice trends for Lowry overseas, and then sandwiched between what you talked about on the PGA Tour. I think he's intriguing. I agree with you on Doc when we're getting up there. I mean, last week was the week for him to really come through, and he played strong. No fault to him, but getting the elevated ownership and elevated price of him and Lonto, I'm going to pass there. Where I find my biggest intrigue, and he's not under-owned either, but I really like Siwoo coming off of just some really hot ball striking. I've seen, with him on the Bermuda, for his victories, this seems to be a type of course fit and green surface that might play right into his favor. One of the betting favorites, I know Jeff's big on him this week. I really do like Siwoo at 8,300.
Yeah, I'm going to take a pass on that. And everyone knows how much I love Siwoo. Kim, chalky Siwoo, not going to be my jam. I'm sorry.
It's probably the recipe. You're smart. You've been on the roller coaster enough to know when you bet them and when you play them, or when you do both. I caught the 50. I think he opened at 66 that a few people got. So I caught the 50. So maybe it is a smarter type of that strategy. But if you talked about the 2 guys alone at 8K, I mean, James Hahn and Stuart Sink are both playing some of the best golf of their lives right now. It's crazy to see.
Can you do that's too much money for these guys?
I mean, Stu Manji almost won again last week. I mean, he finished solo or I think solo 4th or T4th, 4 straight made cuts. He bounced back after we didn't like him, because I think he lost 12 strokes approach at his previous event. I know we're getting elevated prices for him, but the recent form, and that's the thing, do you just, are they going to fall back to their long-term baselines? Realistically, yes. But I mean, Hahn, when's the last time Hahn had 3 top 10s in a row? It's just crazy to me. So do you bite when everyone else does now that he's 8,000, or does that keep people away enough that you think recent form can kind of get him by even at an elevated price?
I think that if these guys were coming in at 3% ownership, then you would have a case to make them really intriguing. But James Hahn might be 3 times as owned as Shane Lowry.
Correct. So that when you put it mathematically like that, yeah, that doesn't make sense in that sense. Because what Hahn's 13, 14%, Lowry at 5%. Yes, at some point. And then you're right. They're all pivots off of Cam Davis, who, no fault to Cam Davis, continues to draw ownership. But I do think the 8s can be a little spicy if you want to mix in those lower owned, especially that you like. And we're not going to talk Jordan Spieth. I don't even think we need to.
Well, there's that grouping right in the middle of the short-hitting, scrambling type players. You got Zach Johnson, who's playing great right now, by the way. Brian Harman and Jordan Spieth from 86 to 84. I have no interest in these guys, but one of them will play well. I guarantee it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was because let me see here. because Willett's in this field. So I think it was Ben Coley that tweeted an interesting odds comparison of ZJ versus Willett this week versus ZJ and Willett next week, where they're very comparable at the Masters as long shots, but ZJ's recent form versus that Willett and the price difference. I mean, ZJ has been exceptional, especially with the approach game. So he would be my pick of the litter of those three. But I just don't see myself attacking the course with that type of strategy.
I can see it. It's a really long course, but that didn't really bother him too much at the U.S. Open. But they're in the third round of the U.S. Open. Dude couldn't miss a putt. So when you think about it that way, right now over the past 3 months, he's third in this field in approach, but he's also second in putting. Those things tend to go hand in hand. So when you look at him on these long par fours, the 450 to 500 range, he is 11th in this field. He should not be 11th in this field, but he keeps making 20-foot putts. Now, can that sustain itself? Sure, it can. Probably won't, but it could. I just don't want to have to pay. I was using Zach Johnson at $6,800 3 weeks ago, and I know that sometimes that's not the best way to think about it, but I can mine Zach Johnson value, I feel, more than I can mine, I don't know, let's say, I would rather take down the $2,000 to try to mine relative Zach Johnson value, and I'd rather spend up $2,000 to get Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. And the thing is, we could look at those prices a little bit differently when we were at the Bermuda, when we were at Corrales. When we actually bring in some studs and these guys are getting into the 8Ks, it's different because at these type of field strengths, you're right. ZJ was low sevens in the sixes not that long ago. So I agree that I think we'll end up, especially with how much I like the top, I'll end up sprinkling in the eights, but being heavier in the sevens and sixes.
So let's talk about the sevens. Do you have a list of guys that you like? Because right now, the ones I have targeted are Westwood, Van Rooyen, Sam Burns, who I think everyone is on, Martin Laird, and Keegan Bradley. Those would be my 5 right now, unless you want to sell me on someone.
So I was going to try to sell you on EVR. I am very happy to hear that. One thing that is intriguing, I don't know, the exact correlations we can pull without a course that we don't have any data on. But on the European Tour just a couple weeks ago, Tom Dokes designed the Scottish Championship course, which EVR finished 6th at. He's somebody who's really good with those long irons. So I am a big fan of EVR. Westwood also top 20 that event and had some strong Euro performances, and his ball striking at the U.S. Open was phenomenal. So I am a fan of Westwood in there too. It does suck that, for a good reason, that Burns is going to pull in that ownership. I think he opened at some books as triple digits, which I don't mind him in that sense, but paying up for Bermuda Burns or paying $7,500 at 15-ish or higher ownership is tough for me. So I don't know. I think I really like your top of the board in that sense, where we are aligning over there with it.
By the numbers, Harold Varner is second. Do you think anyone goes back to him after last week?
I look at the ownership here, and I know he's probably going to crack double digits, but I'm surprised, people aren't going to be more over on that, because statistically, if I ran out a model, he, from a ball striking standpoint, he is a top 5 player on that type of model, especially once you reach into some longer term, and even a top 20 player last 24, last 12 type of rounds. So if people are going to jump off due to him and Stenson getting blown into the Bermuda Triangle, I think that I have no problem going back to Harry Varner.
What about Stenson, though? Because he bogeyed 34 holes in a row in the second round, then withdrew with an injury, I guess. But he's playing this week, so apparently he's fine. He's tuning up for the Masters. He's in the field at Augusta. He's won. Has he won in Houston before? No, he lost to the Herminator that year. I think it was 2016. Yeah. Either way, we know that at his peak, he's going to hit fairways. He's going to ball strike really, really well. We just haven't seen that in a really long time. The other guy we kind of throw into that mix, who I was on last week, was Russell Knox. I might go back to Knox again this week. He wasn't a disaster a week ago. He just got caught in that bad wave on Friday and just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I'll start with Stenson. I think we've talked circles around Stenson, me and you, over the last month, and just can't seem to land on anything. We find ourselves going back in, it feels like, when others have stayed away. You don't get a full read on how that second round really was, due to without any strokes gained data or anything. Because he was under par, I thought, the first round and probably going to make the cut before, he opened on that bogey barrage. But I think I'll still take the pass this week. I don't hate, Knox in that sense where some of the underlying numbers, like you said, still trended up pretty decently for that. This is the first time we see Party Marty since he won at the Shriners. You think he's got anything left in him? Because he's made, 1, 2, 3, 4 of his 5 cuts since he's played since the restart. I guess 3 of those, or 1 of those was on the KFT. So three cuts in a row on the PGA, with the one before his win being a top 30. So maybe Marty stays hot.
I'm in on Marty. I'm definitely going to use him at 73. He's top 10 in approach, top 10 on approaches from beyond 200 yards, top 10 in opportunities gained. He's won in Texas before. I like him. He's cheap. He's. I don't get why Stuart Sink is priced and James Hahn are priced like they are, but Marty is priced at 73.
Yeah. I can agree with that. And then the other one, once we get kind of in the lower sevens, we brought him up last week. I thought he was going to break through after we told everybody that he didn't have any upside. With Adam Schenk finished 26th again. So he's stuck outside of the top 25. He can't break it. He makes the cut, but he cannot get inside the top 25.
Which this is a much better price point for him than what was he last week? $8,300?
Yes. Yeah. So this is, again, a discount from that. I feel much better with the safety. And now I think it's 10 cuts in a row he's made with Adam Schenk at this price. And he was top 10 for close to 54 holes. So I think that is fair with Schenk. Are you getting into Luke List again in Texas here?
No, I'm not going to go with List. I'm not going to go with Schenk. I'm going to go with the inventor of basketball, Matthew Naismith.
Okay. Tell me.
He's just been really good since the Shriners, basically since the restart. When you go and look at what he's done, he's gaining strokes putting again, which is really nice because he had lost in 8 of 10 overall. Not a ton, but enough. Now he's gained over 3 and 2 straight, which has really propelled him up the leaderboard. But if you're going to finish inside the top 20, you're going to need to gain strokes putting. But it's the ball striking that's been really good. So 41st at Corrales, then 17th at Sanderson Farms, gained over 3 strokes ball striking in both of those and around the green as well. Shriners, he was 8th, gained almost 5 strokes on approach, gained off the tee as well. He's draining a few putts right now. He just seems to be in a groove. And I don't think that anyone is going to use him. And just looking at the past 3 months in this range, if you're looking at the guys that actually peak in terms of the stats, Laird is the best. He's number 8. Ventura is number 19 for me. Keegan is number 18, who I am playing. Piercy's 21. Naismith is 27. Scott Stallings is 29. And everyone else is outside the top 40.
Yeah, that's a good sell job. I can definitely add Naismith into the player pool. I think he has a preference on Bermuda too, Southern boy. So I think that's definitely those last 2 events. Those approach numbers, great to see with the putter. You're probably going to laugh again. You did laugh last week when we brought him up at 6,200. He's gotten the boost into the 7Ks now.
No.
Yes. Ollie Snyder Jans once again. He was right in the mix, man. I thought he might do it and just win everyone back over. I really wish, and he came out and said that he was preferring he got this top 10 invite into the Mayakoba, I think, or the RSM, I think it was, where it probably would play into more of his favor. But Ollie looks great last week.
I get it. I want to. I'm just not going to let Ollie break my heart again. I'm just not going to let him do it. Until he establishes himself and gets back on the PGA Tour full time, I'm just not going to believe that he was what he once was when we were just riding him every week and he was churning out top 20s and not being the guy who missed the cut at plus 20 every week.
It's fair. There's definitely, some scars that are there for many people, but it was great to see him play so well last week. I do think, $900 price increase is a bit much as we switch field strengths. So it's not as much of a saver as what we saw. And I think there's other very interesting plays in the 6s, but had to bring him up because I know it would get you tilted a little.
You write the 10 under 7K on ftndaily.com every single week. Is that out yet?
Yeah, it came out late last night. So 7 under 7K. Elliot does the 10 under 10%.
That's right. I get everything. I get everything mixed up. I apologize, Sky. I apologize for that.
You're good. You're good. But yes, it came out last night. I figured it was a good time on Twitter to not send any content posts in the middle of quite a chaotic scene we've seen here. But yes, 7 under 7 is up. In the first one, if we would to jump into the higher part of the sixes is I liked Austin Cook. If you talked about Neesmith kind of popping in a kind of a one tournament sample in a sense, Austin Cook has had some really good ball striking that he saw at the Shriners, but he had made his previous, until he just missed at the Sanderson, he had made 7 cuts, I believe, in a row. So I liked Cook there at 6,900, but I'm also going back to
Patty,
somebody who probably was overpriced. Yes, there it is. I was overpriced last week, probably a little bit, but he was strong, man. He came out blazing on Thursday morning.
Yeah, and he actually got himself back into the mix on Sunday morning too, and then he ended up giving it all back. He's someone else who had played really well at that, not the Scottish Open, it was the Scottish Challenge, the second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Scottish Championship. Yep, he finished 9th.
Yeah, so he is another one coming off a decent week. Yeah, I'm in on it. $6,800 is a fine price.
Perfect. Yep. I really do like Harrington, and people were tweeting me early on Thursday morning, like, you know, great call. I was like, man, we're quite early here. I was hoping we could get the first round leader, but yeah, Sunday he came out. I think he was like -5 through 7. Him and McCarthy were lighting it up. So, but yeah, those are my 2 in the top range of the sixes that I like a lot.
I'm just trying to look down. Oh my God, John is in this field. Excellent news. What about?
Hey, I wrote him up too.
Oh Jesus,
I like Johnny question marks.
Okay, what about Molinari? $6,600.
Worth it, man. Like, I would love to see it, but at Shriners he was kind of bad putting. Molinari just kind of meh. I mean, there's no reason to play him other than you think he can just snap his fingers and find what Molinari was before. And is that way better than anybody else in this range? Absolutely. He was the best player in the world realistically not that long ago. That summer he was the best player in the world. So to see him down there in this field, of course it is shocking, but I still play the wait and see because, you know, the ghost of Molinari is still in the back 9 at Augusta. So he's going to have to face his fears next week.
Yeah. Is this a Will Gordon course?
It's probably more of a Will Gordon course than I thought last week was going to be, and he played well. So does that pique my interest a little bit more? Yes. It seems to always be a crowd favorite, maybe because it is the talent. You know, I mean, he was so good. What was that at the Travelers? I think when he finished 3rd. Yep. So good in college. Like, I love the talent. He's somebody who's off the tee game can play with the best out there. So if that's him coming to play, yeah, I prefer him this week than last week. And he didn't really have much of a price difference, even after his best performance in quite some time.
Then I just have my regular Texas guys that I go to, Ortiz and Landry. But I don't know. I've probably just bet Landry first round leader.
Yeah, I mean, he does have that first round leader pop upside in him.
He also has winning. He also has winning upside for like people down in the sixes. He has 2 wins in the past 2 years.
No, I completely agree. I mean, and they are just out of nowhere. So no, especially when you get to Texas. I mean, I am still salty because if you remember who he beat, I think it was at the Valero. I thought Molinax was going to do it.
Oh yeah,
Molinax.
I had
that chip.
It sucked. Yeah, it was the chip on the drivable par 4 17th, the 71st hole. He put it short left of that bunker and then just missiled it into the bunker and couldn't get up and down. Just make that birdie. Feinberg cashed Landry at 175 to 1 that week, and I had Mullenix at 250 to 1. I was like, let's go. And then he ended up winning, and I did not win. That was not fun. But then was he the one who outran Rahm at Career Builder that year?
Was it Rahm or was that this year? How long ago was that Landry victory? I thought he beat Answer and Scheffler on that day.
Yes, he did. He lost to Rahm in the playoff.
Okay. So again, though, I mean, that's winning upside there. So for somebody, I mean, in 2020 to have a victory like that, yeah, and especially the Texas narrative, I think that's a little bit intriguing. I hadn't even thought of him.
All right. Anyone else in the sixes you want to talk about?
I did think that, seriously, you mentioned John Huh, but I mean, his approach numbers, if you take a peek when he came out, he's only played once in like 6 months. This is his first time since the restart, but his approach at the Shriners and his tee to green overall was, top 3 of the field. So is that something you can rely on? I have no idea. I don't know. I really actually don't know why he didn't play until October. Try searching John Huh on Twitter to look for injuries. It's just impossible. So I really couldn't find what was going on with him, but those approach numbers were kind of lights out the last time we saw him. And the other interesting one I'd bring up, we probably hit on every single Euro in this field almost, but Justin Harding is at 6,500.
No.
Okay.
What's he going to do? Gain 13?
He played okay.
Listen, if you want to correlate your lineup with Luxac putters, you might as well play him and Spieth together. You could play Spieth. You could play Denny McCarthy. You could play Justin Harding. You can play Graham McDowell. You can play Maverick McNeely. You can throw all those guys into the same bucket.
Perfect. You can make a little Raj. The one thing is about Harding, he did go to college at Lamar University, which is just outside of Houston. So
what the hell is Lamar
really
University?
I really have no idea, but I was kind of doing some research because I actually think why I knew this is because he was in the Valero last year, and I was so into him because he almost beat Rory at the match play, was so into Harding, and then he just was awful at the Valero. And then he came out and was the first-round leader, I think, at the Masters when he played so well.
Yeah, and then he got himself a Masters invite by finishing top 12 last year. So he'll be at Augusta next week. Any bets that you made this week?
So I'm with you on Brooks. I'm with you on Brooksy there. Like I said, I liked Si Woo from the betting perspective at 50. I also, Harrington, I think, was floating around like some 150s. So I'm probably more of a top 10 on Patty Harrington, but I mean, I'm still going to always sprinkle the outright a little bit. But those were my main 3 that I've came out with.
I bet I'm keeping the card relatively small this week because, I'm going to go overboard and bet stupid things at the Masters. So just bear with me on that. So my bets for the week, I got Brooks at 22, Scheffler at 22, Cam Davis at 75 with the top 5, and I have Lee Westwood at 80 with the top 5. Those are my 4 bets. First round leaders, Keegan, Landry, Burgoon, Villegas, and Harrington. That's Scott Harrington. I should probably note that because you should probably bet Scott Harrington every week. What are Patty Harrington's first round leader odds?
It's got to be triple digits as well. I love that you found the Burgoon one because he's not priced in DraftKings, right? He just got into the field yesterday.
Yeah, but his first round leader odds are out there. I am going to go to first round leader, go double Harrington. Yeah, Patty Harrington's 100 to 1. I will throw on Patty Harrington as well at 100 to 1. But
perfect. I think I might be on Van Rooyen too. I think I'm finding myself, if I'm adding one more, Van Rooyen and Westwood, I'm probably going to split between those two on which one will be my final bet.
What is Van Rooyen? He's 60.
He opened he opened at 80. So I don't know if there's anything else floating that might still be in the 80s. 60s is tough. I kind of like the Westwood number a little bit more there. But both those guys kind of fall into my favorite type of plays to always bet on.
Okay. In Euro, I actually bet someone. I bet Maximilian Kiefer in this weird Cyprus event.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear. So, like, for those that don't know, so we have a 105-man field over at the same course. It's called the Cyprus Showdown this week. So it's going 105, 36 holes, traditional style, and then they're taking the top 36 scores from the first 2 days, move on to Saturday. Everybody starts back at even par. They play 18 on Saturday, take the top 16 of those 32, reset the scores again on Sunday, and then it's a showdown on Sunday. Whoever shoots the lowest 18-hole score on Sunday will get the championship, which is crazy because somebody could win theoretically, by 4 or 5 strokes and then just come out and lose by 1 on Sunday and, be in a tie for third or something. It's just a crazy format that I don't know where the value exists on betting, because it seems if you can lock in somebody who is going to make the 16, which seems like the top of the board to me, then you're going to get value because those guys are going to be like 6 to 10 to 1. So the one bet that I made was the Scottish Tim Andercuss. I'm on Bob McIntyre this week.
Oh, yeah. He's no longer the Scottish Tim Andercuss. He's skinny Bob now.
He does look good. And he came out and said, because he struggled since the restart, he was hurt a little bit of the wrist, fired the caddy, has a new caddy. And he did say, and I saw some reports afterwards, and of course, he finished third last week. He said, felt great. This is the best, I've kind of felt, put in some work after he withdrew from the previous tournament. And said it's the best he's felt in some time, and good to see the success pay off. So there was a 33 on Bob when it opened. I think it's 28-ish now. But if he makes it through to Sunday, and I also think, in a sense, this might be a chance for guys that struggle on Sundays, which a lot of the European Tour players seem to do. It seems like no one ever wants to win. That, you just have to shoot low on Sunday. There's no question asked. So maybe that mindset of winning or holding a lead is eliminated. So someone like McIntyre, who hasn't won yet, or even Dietrich, who's the field leader, might have a little less pressure on Sunday because they know everybody's got to do the same thing.
One and dones, the second to last week of my Jeff and Cuss contest. We all missed the cut last week, so I'm still in the lead by a bit. I have Scotty Scheffler as my one and done. Jeff is using Kim, and Cuss is using Russell Henley. So chalk Russell Henley and Cuss one and done. Not a recipe for success there. Sky, tell everyone what you got coming out for the Masters next week.
Yeah, so we're going to have, our standard FTN Daily, where we'll have probably a little bit of lead up in advance of our content. I'm going to start with breaking down the international players that are in the field. We'll be going over kind of their rolling stats across the pond, as we have a good amount of those high OWGR guys crossing over. So breaking down that look, we'll continue with our 7 under 7. I'm actually going to kick off a little bit of Masters talk this evening. I'm going to hop on the Jeff Feinberg show at about 10:15 tonight for us to talk through a little bit of early look into the Masters as well. And then we always finish off the week with kind of our subscriber-only Wednesday behind the paywall for our golf members. Just kind of a talk between myself, Axis, and Drew leading up to how the week led off. And hopefully me and you can kind of collaborate on Wednesday too next week.
Yes, I will be doing the live chat noon Eastern on Mayo Media Network. Sub now to that next Wednesday. That'll be live. Betting show with Jeff Feinberg Monday. DraftKings pick show. I'm going in reverse order now, actually. With Ben and Rick is going to come out Saturday. So there's going to be a ton of Masters content. But like I mentioned off the top of the show, if you get a Fantasy National membership today, the weekly membership, you get to go Wednesday to Wednesday, which gives you Houston pre-tournament, Houston in-tournament stats, and all of the Masters up to tee off. So use /Mayo at the end of fantasynational.com and get yourself 20% off. I believe it comes to $7 for that weekly membership. So good time to invest in fantasynational.com. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
That Mayo experience! Experience!